everything I say and do shall and will be on record for now till the end of time.
Yes, it will be forever. So, I loved the Cuban. I loved the story. There was like so much. It's like a love letter, like it said. But not only to music, but among family. Um, what did you enjoy the most directing this film?
Wow, it's a loaded question. It's not something I think about a lot because there's one thing I love about film is just how multifaceted it is and how collaborative it is. So when I start to get bored in the prep stage or working with my my writer Alessandra Pichon, then it's time to get into pre-production. So I start meeting with my heads of departments, and some of the I guess highlights for me was working with the cinematographer Ciliana Cardenas, who's originally from Mexico City. She helped me, I guess, re-fall in love with this art form, and I think that was one of the highlights. And then, of course, working with the cast, like working with Anna and Lou Gossett Jr., who's a living legend, and one of my favorite actresses of all time, Shohreh Aghdashloo. And then, Lauren Holly, Giacomo Gignotti, so many great artists that I got to collaborate with, not the least of which is Hilario Duran, who's Grammy-nominated, just incredible virtuoso and pianist. So those were some of the highlights. And then, of course, shooting in Havana was a whole other thing.
You just covered a little bit of everything I was going to ask you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But it sounds like you were just thrilled about the project overall.
I was. Sometimes projects just state and they sort of, you're in development hell forever. And this movie just moved so quick. Mm-hmm. And, I wouldn't say there was never any challenges. Of course there were. On every film there's challenges. But everything was just serendipitous, the way everything lined up a certain way. And in some ways I felt like I was riding a bull, like I was just being pulled along for this crazy ride. And it was a very personal film. Sometimes you make a movie because you have something to say about society, relationships, the human condition. With this movie, there was something really strong burning inside me and personal that I really wanted to tell the story. So it's a whole other experience when you have the privilege of having to do that,
mm-hmm.
or getting to do that.
Right. So let's start. We can start with the story. So
sure.
It's starting about, you have this pre-med student working at a retirement home, realizes that a lot of these elders are a little neglected. They're treated too much like just another patient. And,
yes.
And this girl takes her time to kind of connect with a patient to try to just get him to eat. And little did she know that this guy was this whole golden box.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think definitely opens even conversation when it comes to, family. That's why I'm saying this is a love letter in all sorts of different directions.
Yes, I think, when we walk through the halls of a nursing home, at least for me, I always wonder, who are these people? What are their stories? What are their histories? And of course, tragically, when they die, a lot of those histories die with them. So that was like the driving force for at least what kind of drew me to this project and really want to take on this journey. And, it's our relationship with our elders has changed. We're all busy and kind of trapped in this lifestyle where we're working more than ever. Mm-hmm. And just 50 years ago or 100 years ago, our elders lived in our villages, in our cities, in our towns, and they would be the go-to for advice, for, comfort, and very integrated in society. And now, at least in the Western world, they've been completely pushed off to the side, and not because it's anyone's fault, and it's not really a judgment, it's more of an observation, and we're all complicit. I mean, this is a collective issue. It's not just certain places, certain cities. I think it's like all of North America and now even Europe, parts of Europe. We just don't have the time to deal with our elders and their needs, whether medical, mental, or emotional. So because of I felt the weight of that in my own life. I felt that it was a story to tell, not that in any way that I'm perfect or the writer. I mean, these are just reflections.
Right. So let's talk a little about the casting. Was there someone, and I'm thinking of someone in my head that really have to do any casting for the role?
I personally, I find the audition process like grueling and in some ways humiliating for the artist, and for the director. Like just sitting there and doing a cattle call is just not, you're not going to get the best out of people. And then the opposite. Sometimes people do amazing auditions, but then don't deliver what you need them to deliver on set. So I like to know who the actors are, know their body of work, and really respect them as artists. And I get giddy about having the opportunity to be able to work with some of the legends that I grew up watching. So with this film, I really handpicked who I wanted, and I had the luxury of working closely with the writer. So a lot of the roles were written for those actors. So there were very few parts that I had to actually cast in a conventional sense. And usually how I do it is I just call a meeting, a dinner, over espresso or wine, and really just talk about life, and very little to do with the actual role itself, and just decide whether it's a fit or not. And thankfully with this film, all the stars aligned and I got everyone I wanted.
Was it a bit of a struggle finding someone to fit for Mina? You had to have someone with the voice also. You had a combination of, good acting and a voice.
Yeah, so the role was very much written for Anna because I knew Anna. We were talking about originally doing a short film, and the original version was really a grandfather with his grandson, so it didn't even have a female lead in it. And then one day I said, well, what if the lead is you? What if we make it, a young Afghan nurse, and and you sing, by the way, you sing, that's great. So we I knew what I could draw out of her, and I knew what her talents were. So so again, the role was very much written for her.
Okay, that's nice. And what was it like to work, with Mr. Gazette? Legend.
Incredible. Like, I think I got over the shock and awe the first time I met him at his home in Malibu. So I saw the posters on the wall, the Roots, and the Officer and a Gentleman, and all the accolades in the awards. So it took quite a while, and then we went out for dinner, so we were able to get to know each other as people, and really get beyond the image or the iconic thing that we all obsess about. And he's just such a wonderful person, and he brought that positive spirit to the set. So I think he'd come on set and he was joking around every day and just making everyone feel welcome, and that's what you want. You want somebody with that level of experience who's also a team player. So, it was a wonderful experience.
So let's talk now. Let's go back to the filming part. Your intro. I love the intro. You had like a little bit of animation there. What made you come up with that as an intro?
So there's this wonderful classically trained artist, Peter Nally, and we had worked together indirectly on an animation movie. We became friends, and I said, I really am struggling with trying to figure out how to get us into this movie. And I think I spent more time with Peter than any other crew member, just like months and months, just like talking about this opening. And he just started painting. He said, I'm going to do it in my spare time between projects. And he just started creating layers and layers and layers. So that's all hand painted. And then he eventually animated that. So he brought it into digital form, and it's very beautiful. And then that takes us into what I called the ballet. I had music playing on set every day. So I had a certain type of music rhythmically that helped us through that steady cam shot. So that was originally just one take. And it felt quite long, so eventually we chopped it up, cut it down, made it a little shorter. But I think it captures the spirit of, what it must be like to be in a nursing home, experiencing isolation, and sometimes the patient's not even knowing where they are. It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it is pretty scary. But, you have some that bring in the sunshine for them.
Yes. Well, the goal was to make it uplifting, because if we watch the news nowadays, that's depressing enough. So, the goal was really to have the viewer or audience really feel hopeful and optimistic.
Oh, for sure. And thank you for this material right now.
Thank you.
Um, so it sounds like you were really involved in the music too. I mean, yes, I had a chance to listen to the soundtrack.
Cool.
I loved it. I can't wait for like everything to open and go salsa dancing. It's been so long. You get caught up in life, and you forget about the little things
Yeah,
that make you happy. But it's a
it's
great
true.
soundtrack. I loved it. And then it has also the classics, it has like Quizás, Quizás, Quizás that, you had
Mhm.
Anna sing. You had the El Canonero,
Mhm.
Guantanamera. I mean, classics.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, first of all, I give a lot of credit to my music supervisors, because we started working on the music way before we shot the film.
Mm,
So, like a lot of times you're like, oh, I want a Beatles song or a Rolling Stones song, and it's just kind of a pipe dream. In our case, they got working on it fairly quickly right from the onset. So we had a lot of that music, and then we went into the studio before we shot with Hilario and the whole band. And so I had the soundtrack basically down on my computer, like before we even we started shooting. So we were able to use that music throughout the shooting as well, which was beneficial to me, and more, I think, even more beneficial to the actors, because it really brought them into, a headspace fairly quickly.
the feel, right?
Yeah, we were all on the same page. If we're gonna have, a moment where we're all gonna cry together, that's what needs to happen, and or if we're gonna be joyous and laugh and, break Lou out of a nursing home, then that's what we're gonna do. So the music was very helpful.
The music was definitely key. I myself, while I was watching the movie, I actually Shazam some of the songs, and I was like, wait, it's the same guy. And then I picked up, I'm like, wait, it's a soundtrack. Like nowadays, we neglect soundtracks because we get caught
Yeah.
up it's all sorts of music. Everything's kind of changed. But I was like, this is cool. There's an actual soundtrack to this film. Like it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Well, it meant so much to me growing up. Like, if you play one piece of music, I'll usually be able to tell, oh, that was in a scene in this movie, and it's just so powerful that it's hard to kind of not think about it, especially a musical film like this. The soundtrack was so important, and I'm glad that with digital, platforms, that now it's available to the world. Anybody can access it through Spotify or any of the other platforms. So.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the locations. I know you kind of mentioned some, but you said that there was filming in Cuba, which were, I mean, very beautiful scenes. Can
Thank you.
you share a little more?
Yeah, so the originally I wanted to shoot as close to home as possible, like close to the city, we were in Toronto at the time, and the idea was, oh, let's go to a hospital and maybe use one section of it, but it's so noisy and chaotic that it's just not conducive to shooting, right? And somebody on the team said there's a hospice 1 hour outside of the city that's now empty. So it was a place where people would go spend their final days and maybe weeks before they die. And I thought, I don't know if I want to make that my home base and shoot in there. It just sounded really kind of morose and just not fun. But when I got there, there was a beautiful energy and just feel to it. And it was fully intact with everything on the walls. I mean, we stressed it to make it look a little more bleak. But essentially that became, the center of the universe for us in terms of production. And then we just built out everything around there. So we shot in Paris, Ontario. That's a really beautiful, romantic little town. And then everything else in Brantford, Ontario. So it was all pretty contained. And then of course, we shot in Havana, which was like a whole other, it was like shooting a whole other movie there in terms of preparation and just logistics. It was crazy.
That's awesome. And just to start finalizing, I mean, this was about, Luis, a forgotten legend. Who would you say today would be a forgotten legend?
Oh boy. Um, in music or in film?
Overall, in your
Well, yeah, I mean, I get to use a reference that's related to the movie. I mean, Lou Gossett has now found a whole new audience. Like, whether it's the millennials or younger, really didn't know his body of work, so now they're rediscovering it through this film, through Watchmen, and some of the other films that he's done. So here's an artist who worked with Marilyn Monroe and knew Brando and studied at the Actors Studio, and here he is in 2020 doing the Cuban. So it's like, it's incredible how one can continue to reinvent themselves. So I would say Lou Gossett Jr. It's like he was the first Black actor to be nominated for a supporting role in history. So it's things like that that I think about sometimes, and there's many others, of course, whether it's in music or in other art forms. But yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing him back.
Thank you. It was, yeah. I mean, I was just so honored to have him in the movie, and he was just such a pleasure to work with. He's a friend and mentor, and I learned so much from him. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much. And just real quick, is there something you want to share about something you may be working on?
Well, obviously, with COVID, we're all rethinking content, and so I'm not sure. I mean, all the protocols have changed in terms of how we shoot movies. So I'm really looking forward to just finding something small and intimate that I can shoot with a 5-person crew, and in the Amalfi Coast in Italy or something, like a 2-hander, very intimate film. And then we're also developing a TV series based on a best-selling book. So there's several things that I'm looking at. But again, COVID has, I think, realigned everything for us, our values and what we consider to be important. So I really want to find projects that really kind of inspire me to kind of get out of bed in the morning and get excited about working on them. So
yeah. Okay, well, sounds good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for the Cuban. Like I said, I loved it, and the fact that I was presenting songs.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad it got you to want to dance again. That's what Cuba does for people.
Yes, we want to party a little.
I know. Just get out of the house.
No. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.